Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Star Wars Stuff Podcast. My name is David.
I'm Colin.
I'm Ray.
And I'm Josh.
And this is where we talk all things Star Wars. And it almost feels like we have a special guest today. It
Yeah, I
is
know.
Ray. She hasn't been with us for quite a while.
They're back. Let's go.
I'm back.
Yep.
Our wonderful resident artist.
Yes.
All of our logos.
Yeah, every logo
single
that you
piece of art that we
see.
get.
Yeah, essentially everything that if you look at the top right-hand corner for watching this on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, she has designed for us, and we have it. It's kind of hard to see that one, but it's really cool. And yeah, she's designed everything that we've done graphically. So yeah, big shout out to Ray. I can say it to her face. Shouting you out.
Thank you.
So before we get started, though, we do want to recognize our awesome support, our patrons. On the purple tier, we have Chris Simpson, Kevin Leininger, Devin McCaffrey, Drew Peters, Sean Greathouse, and Zach Netzel. And Maria Atia Arnold. On the red tier, we have Finbeer526, Maya Morris. On the black tier, we have Maka Tautala, Nathan Shank, Evan Opaker, Liam McCallion, and Texas Vader 76. Thank you all for your awesome love and support for our podcast. It means a lot to us. So Colin has some really awesome topics he wants to talk about, even though he's muted. But the big topic, I think, that has been on everyone's brain for a while now, since we did our last podcast, was, and this is a rumor, I think it's one of those grain of salt type rumors that is out there. So I think it's okay for us to talk about it. So if you're sensitive to any type of rumors that are possible, it might pan out, might not pan out, but it feels like everyone's talking about it in the Star Wars sphere, on the internet, and other podcasts, is the fact that we might get an appearance by none other than Keanu Reeves, which is a fan cast that was made, I want to say, before the Rosario Dawson fan cast of Ahsoka Tano. It's been that long, it feels like. I don't know if anyone in chat can talk
It
to
has
that.
been a
But
very, very long time. And I remember seeing all the fan photos and edits of it. I mean, it's definitely one of those things that I'm like, please. How much of a little cameo it would be, who knows? But it's definitely something that like everyone's been like, please. And I wonder how much he'd be up to it, because I feel like he's been doing so much so lately, but I wonder how long he'll continue acting, or he'll continue acting to the point where it's like there's a lot of action that he's doing. Because I feel like he's getting up there with age. So, hey, man, if you're going to put him in a Star Wars project and get him doing this fan favorite character, please do it now.
Well, also, if it's a character with a helmet, then you can use a body double.
This is true. Like, from what we would know is that he wouldn't do anything with the helmet until he becomes like a Darth. So he's still Revan for a long time until he places the helmet back on and then becomes Darth Revan. So I'm very curious to see if they'd push it. And it's funny because like everyone has their favorite story for Revan being like from the Old Republic games. So I'm like, this will be interesting to when they decide if they're going to change it or not. And we do know that Revan is canon due to the squadrons being named in episode 9, I believe. So we'll see what happens.
yeah, I want to give a shout out to Evan in the chat here. He's one of our awesome patrons. I'm about to send something in the mail to Evan because he's on our $66 tier. So look for that. Hopefully it gets to you faster than the last package did, because his last package actually ended up in South Korea, I believe, and he lives on the opposite side of the world. So yeah, he let us know about that because I sent something to him. He got it like 6 months later. So
Sounds about right.
yeah. Hey, what's up,
Less
pizza
time
kid?
than I've been gone.
It's true.
So yeah, we are talking about the Acolyte. We are talking about a possible appearance by Keanu Reeves in the Acolyte. But I've heard so many different rumors and stories and theories on what we're going to get in Acolyte. And I was just talking to Josh, Ray, and Colin before the podcast about the trailer, the awesome trailer that we don't understand why they haven't released to the public yet at Celebration Europe. It was so great. I forgot the middle of it because the beginning and the end to me were so profound and kind of set the tempo, set the stage for what we're going to get with Acolyte. It feels like very dark, very gritty. It felt like to me. It was very surprising, very just
It was a
very
very refreshing take on Star
yes,
Wars.
it was yeah, it was relieving too because I mean, you think of Acolyte, you think High Republic, the end of it, but of course the end usually doesn't end well. But it was very dark, and I was like, "Wow, this is a very interesting take." And then you get Leslie Headland on stage talk about how she's a huge fan and that Star Wars got her through life essentially, and that she's read pretty much everything from extended universe to what's canon now. And she's like a real hardcore Star Wars fan. It's going to be interesting to see what her take on Acolyte is. But that beginning and end, and all the stories that I just alluded to, it's at the very end of the High Republic, leading into the Phantom Menace time period. So my initial thought was always Plagueis. Are we going to get Plagueis stuff? There's an opportunity to do that. And then, of course, we have the rumors with Revan. I mean, this series might be one of the greatest things that we get in Star Wars. And I know I'm hyping it up now, and I'm probably hyping myself up too, but there's an opportunity there to do something really, really great, I think.
Yeah, I'm very excited for it. I mean, all that we've really had, and I feel like we're actually going into this new stage of Star Wars with having High Republic stuff be visually put on screen or in other visual media. Because one of the big points, I think I've talked about it before, is that in like the main plot point for Jedi Survivor was to do with the High Republic. So it was great seeing those types of characters and understanding what it was like being a Jedi during this this peak of prosperity. So I'm very, very, very excited to see what they have in store for us. The thing is with that trailer is they showed a lot from the perspective of the Jedi and showing how many Jedi were actually on screen. It was awesome. The only thing is that I want to see, because she explained it as a Star Wars story from the side of the bad guys. So I'm like, hey, I can't wait to see all that we have for the villain side on screen. I'm very, very excited for that.
Yeah, I just wonder how they're going to pull that off, really. If because we've heard of stories and we've seen stuff told by the view of the villains, the bad guys, and it still seems like it kind of more or less concentrates a lot more than I think we're expecting on the light side. And then the villains somehow get kind of turned like better than what they were. Like they have like a better heart than what we originally thought, and they kind of turn them good in a way. I think that's kind of the trend right now. So it's gonna be interesting if she actually does it like hardcore dark side. Coming up with Ahsoka, we have the orange lightsabers, which kind of tells me maybe those new villains are maybe not light, not dark, maybe something totally different than what we've got.
we gotta keep that. It's that one thing for like of Yoda's comment being like, you're gonna be the last Jedi, and we're gonna have all these lightsaber users, but we can't have them actually be Jedi. So I feel like that's the thing that they're doing with it.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing that Lucasfilm has kind of gone back on, but not gone back on from a certain point of view, that Yoda was saying he was the last Jedi.
I feel like it's one of those things that that a lot of fans want to see is just the idea of the Gray Jedi as like an EU thing. However, I don't feel like they'll ever be like, we have Gray Jedi. I feel like we're just gonna have these in a figurative sense, instead of being a whole black and white story, we're gonna have people who are in the gray who use Force abilities and lightsabers.
Well, I wonder
Yeah.
if that could come out with the new Rey movie when she's training a new Jedi Order. If you have something that's a little more towards the Gray Jedi.
Yeah, I mean, we had like, what is it? The Jedi text go away, but now they're kind of back. So I'm very interested to see what they do with that film. I'm very excited.
That was actually my hope in 2017 when I met Colin at the Last Jedi panel when they showed us the trailer. It alluded to almost like we're gonna do like a get rid of the Jedi Order and do something brand new and maybe get like something like Gray Jedis. But I've heard Filoni say either Filoni or Lucas have said there's no such thing as a Gray Jedi. There's either Jedi or Sith.
Mm-hmm.
But with this Ahsoka show, they might be skirting that line. So hopefully, I would be all for it. That would be something different. It'd be something new. It'd be something like Josh said, something that the fans have been kind of liking since the extended universe, and something I think people would welcome. I mean, it's something different. It's human nature, more predicated to that. So I would be all for it. What about you, Colin?
Yeah, the thing that I'm super excited about Acolyte is that, which is something we talked about last week, and it's that we are going to be in the prime of the Jedi. This is not what George Lucas's commentary was for Attack of the Clones, of where he was like, hey, you know, this is where the Jedi are, you know, in their prime, blah blah blah. That is totally different from what the Acolyte is, because of this is when they are not corrupted by the Senate, they are not power hungry. This is like when the Jedi are in their prime of what their main objective is, which is keeping the peace. They are not doing errands for the Senate or anything. They are being protectors of the galaxy. And this is going to be a great show because it's going to show the audience a different side of the Jedi they've never seen before on screen. And to me, this is what the kind of message of the Jedi is during this time, is they are protectors of the peace. Like Mace Windu said, they are protectors of the peace, not soldiers. And they were soldiers long before the Clone Wars. Something from the High Republic between the events of the prequels changed that. And I think that's what we're going to see in Acolyte, is we are slowly going to get into that rhythm of what we see happen in the prequels. And is it going to have Darth Plagueis? Maybe. But that is basically of what the Acolyte is. It's bridging that gap between the at the end of the High Republic era to the prequels. And that's never been done before. So that's very, very exciting to see, especially if we're getting that on screen. It's going to be awesome.
And I want to see young Palpatine. I want to see Tom Hiddleston in that role.
Okay.
We've been saying that for years. I mean, he
would
looks
be
just like
perfect.
him. You stick the hood on him.
Yeah.
Perfect.
It's him.
Yeah, I really want to see the them sowing the seeds of the destruction of the Jedi on screen, where like I want to see like a whole audience feel of just like it's this click of like, oh, this is the exact point you can pinpoint where it just immediately starts going into the wrong direction for them. And by the time like we know, it's like it's already too late for them to change anything.
Yeah.
It'd be very exciting to see on screen.
Yeah. For our next piece of news is Outlaws. At San Diego Comic-Con this past weekend, we got a bunch of new footage. We got a bunch of new planets. Josh, how excited are you?
Well, okay. So this is more of a this was a developer kind of thing of they were showing off like, hey, look, this is what we got working. This is where we're going with our concept wise. And yeah, they showed off that there's like new planets. I'm very excited to see how it is in these different sides. And they said that they're really pushing for the space Western feel, which
Yes.
I'm very, very excited for. And they commented, and I feel like they got it extremely right in the fact that this is war during this time. Gives a lot of opportunities for people like our main character in this game, where it's like, hey, like all these smugglers, all these bounty hunters and all these people who are basically criminals are coming together to use it as a wonderful opportunity for each other. So I was like,
Yeah.
this is going to be very fun. However, I don't feel like they still haven't really showed us or explained to us as much as gameplay wise as I would like. I'd love a full gameplay breakdown and different features that are coming to the game before I make my full honest opinion and decision on what I want to see or what I can't wait to see. Everything that they showed off so far definitely has me hyped. I think I've said it before. It's like, what does open world mean for Star Wars? I definitely want to know what that means for this. So I'm excited.
Something else as well is that it's going to give you which it kind of answers a question, which was how canon is this game going to be? Apparently, it's going to give you a couple of options of what you can do, and it can kind of change your outcome of what's happening in the game. So, for example, at some point you will be working for Jabba. You have the chance to do what he says, or you can kind of go back on your word. Now, this whole game is to me, because you're a main character and they haven't fully announced yet if you will be able to do customization or anything, most likely it's probably going to be a no. But now it's just like, okay, well, if the game's not going to be fully canon, then because you have a bunch of chances to change the choices that you make, then is the game going to be fully canon? Like, I'm really curious of what your guys' thoughts on this is, because they haven't made a game like this since like The Force Unleashed, where like because every game that's come out recently has been canon. But if they're changing the choices of what you can do going forward, that's going to affect the canon.
Something interesting in my opinion is so have you played the recent Assassin's Creeds?
No, I haven't. I've been wanting to, but I have not.
Okay, well, one of the biggest criticisms for them is that they are absolutely stupid long. Like, like if you wanted to do everything in it, it would take hundreds of hours. And I believe Ubisoft just said that, hey, like this game is air quotes unfinishable because it is like over 300 hours long to be able to do everything.
I saw,
and I was like, that's a lot of things, and I'm very interested to see where it goes from there. Because I know that it was a criticism of Assassin's Creed, but I feel like with Star Wars, it's a perfect thing. It's just endless content. And one thing that I really do want is to be able to play a game and have a completely different experience to my friends, and we can have a conversation and be like, hey, did you experience this? Oh no, I didn't. I talked to someone else. And it's all a changing different base of what's happening. So I'm excited to see where it goes from here. And I don't know what the canon side of where they're allowed to take things, and how much they're allowed to change. And I feel like this is going to be a story. Like, I wouldn't doubt at the beginning of this to keep things in a canon. It's a retelling from her perspective, where she's like, I'm going to tell you my story and how it happened. So they can still keep their canon. However, it is from her perspective of what happened. So I don't doubt it's going to start like that.
Yeah, man. And this time period is very, very, it's one that's not really explored. It's kind of like when they started exploring the timeline between Return of the Jedi and Force Awakens. Like, that timeline was never really explored until The Mandalorian came out. And this, time period hasn't been really explored except with a couple of shorts and books here, but not on screen, not as large as a game like this. So seeing things play out during this time period of where it ties, into the original trilogy is definitely going to be awesome, because it's going to add to the canon. I recently started listening to on Audible A Certain Point of View, and I cannot stress enough how I'm looking at the Cantina scene for A New Hope very differently now. because it just dives in deeper into characters that you see on screen for maybe like 30 seconds, but now you know everything happening with them. And I can't wait to listen to the Empire Strikes Back one and Return of the Jedi. But I'm hoping to see some characters that we haven't seen on screen in a long time. And you know, this is Star Wars Outlaws. So that means smugglers, bounty hunters, pirates. The possibilities are endless for cameos for characters that we saw in the cantina. Like, how cool would it be to see the twin sisters there? And then there is Muftak. Like, there's so many opportunities to put characters and have them have a large role in this game. So I'm really hoping to see the underworld come out from under and just be seen in this game across the galaxy, because it's called Star Wars Outlaws, and you can't have Outlaws with, you know, some classic faces like IG-88 and Dengar and stuff. Like, throw them in there. Just do it.
Yeah, back when Annie and Anthony hosted the Star Wars show, they went to Regal Robot and they made a full-scale wearable cosplay of Muftak. And I think Anthony put it on, and it looked awesome, man. It looked very, very warm because it's like fur from like head to toe, and like a little thing. And he would always like touch it.
I know exactly what Ray's gonna say too.
We know somebody who does Muftak, and it is incredibly hot.
Yep.
She wears an ice pack vest, and it melts within, I think, what was it, like 30 minutes?
Yeah. That
It's
like
completely
suit
melted.
is hot, and I believe she also wears stilts for that costume too.
Yes, because when she wears it, her head does not come above the torso.
Yeah,
It's very
no. That like costume is tall, and I remember going to Celebration 2019, and I remember seeing people wear a Wampa costume for the first time, and it's just like that. Like, those costumes are big. And it's so cool to have the opportunity to be part of the 501st and the Rebel Legion and the Droid Builders, to bring everything we see on screen to life in a way. So, going back to the game though, I really want to see characters that we haven't seen in a long time, like in this game. Now, Ray, I have a question for you. Are you a gamer or not really?
No.
Okay. So what does a Star Wars game need to do to kind of draw you into it? Because I've always been curious of, like, there's some games that people won't play, but then like a new game comes out and then it's like, boom, that's interesting. I want to play that. What would Star Wars Outlaws have to do to make you be like, all right, I'm buying a PlayStation 5, I'm buying a new controller, headset? Like, what's the thing that will draw you in to buy a game like this?
I know the answer.
Okay.
Sabe.
I knew it. Yeah.
Hey, if you're on Tatooine, it's possible.
Oh, okay. Well,
she's there. I don't know. I never had any sort of PlayStation, Game Boy, any of that growing up. So I never grew up games. So it's not really appealed to me.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know that I'd be able to answer that question.
Okay. All right.
Luckily, we have YouTube. So if you ever really want, you could always just watch what happens. And we could always read.
Yeah, true.
Instead of dropping thousands of dollars on game consoles and deciding to have to play for dedicating hours into a game.
I was not like suggesting her to. I was just curious because there are some people that have like really never been into games, but then, for example, when Hogwarts Legacy came out, all of the Harry Potter fans just were like, all right, I'm getting that game. I'm buying a PlayStation 5. Let's go. And that really doesn't happen. So I was just curious if they end up making a game all about Sabe, would that be the thing where you're like, all right, I'm dropping everything?
I mean, if they made a game where you could play as the handmaidens, Yeah, possibly.
Okay.
I
So
wouldn't know how to operate the system, but I would try.
okay, fair enough. All right.
I think what would get me interested in a game is if it was like contained a lot of lore about a character that I really liked.
Okay.
Like if there's a lot of like background information about Rey, or if you find out more stuff about the Handmaidens or Padme or Naboo in general, I would look into the game. I probably wouldn't buy it to play, but I know a lot of friends who play a bunch of different games, and they would totally just spill everything to me. So
Okay. Fair enough.
So I think I heard some sad news recently. I really loved Battlefront. I love those games on the next gen consoles.
Don't you?
And apparently the next Battlefront game was almost completed. And then they totally scrapped it. And it's
Again?
like right there. Yeah, the next like Battlefront 3, I guess.
Well, so okay,
That would be the second time they've
yes.
canceled it.
Yeah. I have I've been keeping up to date about any news about the next Battlefront game because I think a lot of people will agree, but when the second EA Battlefront launched, it was a mess. I am not going to sugarcoat it. It definitely was a mess. You had to pay to play, and there were a lot of things that were
Did you
advertised.
really? I mean, I was
Oh,
playing.
yeah.
I didn't buy anything.
It definitely the difference is that let your gun is better than mine only because you decided to spend money on the game.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
I still had fun.
pay to win.
yeah.
You could definitely have fun with it. It's just I hate games where it's like you're getting an advantage because
just because you had money.
that was a very big criticism of the game at the time.
Right. But what's crazy is that as soon as it got to the end of its time, that's honestly when the game was at its peak. Like that game still has so many players today. And they were working on Coruscant, they were working on adding Ahsoka and Ventress and all these other characters. And then they were like, we need to make Battlefield 2042. And that's something that I was okay, all right. Just don't forget about, the next Battlefront. And then I get the new Battlefield, and that game was a disaster. And I sat there and I'm like, we could have had Coruscant. We could have had the 332nd Legion from season 7 of the Clone Wars, and they just like poof. They were like, no, we need to focus on this. And I was so sad that day of when they announced when they were ending it. But for the new game, they actually were very, very close. But then they wanted to move on to the next project. Basically because they wanted to focus more on the other Battlefield games and stuff going forward.
With the new acquisition that went through finally of the one from Microsoft and Blizzard Entertainment and Activision, I'm wondering what the future will look like towards PlayStation's deal, which I feel like why not get an exclusive Star Wars game? I feel like that would be something on their horizon anyway.
Yeah.
We had that exclusive for Old Republic, I believe, where it was the remake for it was going to be exclusive.
That's no longer happening.
It's no longer happening. So now I'm kind of confused on where we're going to go with it. However, is there any game studio you would like to see helm a Star Wars game? Because that's an interesting, because technically anyone can do it right now. So
right.
I'm very interested because it's not just EA anymore. So who could come in and absolutely do
I would
a great
really
job?
I mean, I'm not the biggest gamer here, but I would really like a Halo style Star Wars game.
So like from Bungie?
Like 343.
343 was?
So the closest thing we have to that is Republic Commandos.
That's getting a remake.
Yes. And we don't have a date on that. again, I just want an open world game where I can customize my character, go on Tatooine. I want a Red Dead Redemption, GTA type style Star Wars game where I can play online with my friends. If I want to join the Max Rebo band, if I want to,
That was coming.
right.
You want to learn the space flute?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much opportunity, and that game would be. I mean, I'm telling you right now, if they made a game exactly like GTA or Red Dead Redemption, put a Star Wars skin on it, release it, that game would be one of the most groundbreaking, most they would probably make more than what they paid for making the game within the day of launch.
Yeah, I think that would be awesome to have Rockstar come in and do a title for Star Wars.
That would be crazy.
Yeah.
I feel like that would be the game of where Rey would be like, all right, I can be a handmaiden. I can be there's honestly, that's what people want. People want a game where they can put themselves into the, into the galaxy of Star Wars. That's why people go to Galaxy's Edge, because they are living their own adventure in real life, in live action, where you are there. It is your story. You are finding the Falcon. You are going to Oga's Cantina. You are joining the Resistance. That is the point of and the opportunity that a game like that would present for new people. And that would get people to, be like, you know what? I was never really a gamer, but now I'm going to be, because you have the opportunity of living your own story without leaving your couch and going to California or Florida. You can, stay on your couch, play a game, hang out with friends online. That is the dream right there for Star Wars fans, is to be in the story of Star Wars. I am so passionate about this because we were so close. We were so close with Lego Star Wars, and they took away the customization. They didn't have any customization for the characters, and they didn't have any online play. And I was so bummed, because I was like, you were so close to perfection. You missed it. You were so close.
So
So
close
it's just,
to greatness.
yes. It's just like, come on. So please.
Well,
just
I'm still mad at I'm still mad at that game because they completely threw out Sabe.
Yes. Yeah.
My friend sent me a video recording of that little segment.
Yeah.
Where instead of Padme's double, it's just everybody is Padme. And yeah, that's cute. But also,
That's not canon. Yeah.
Sabe is the whole reason that Padme made it out of that movie alive. So
Yep. So no, I
got a question for Colin and Josh here, since they play a ton of games. They've beaten all the Survivor games. They're huge Cal Kestis fans. But is there a game where you can be a main character like a Cal Kestis and go through planets and worlds, what have you, but also do side missions as ancillary side characters? Kind of like what you're saying, Max Rebo. You can join the Max Rebo band and do missions there.
Star Wars Galaxies was the only one.
And then come back to your main storyline if you choose to, or you can kind of stay in that world and just kind of chill out.
So there was a couple of game online platforms for PC when the Clone Wars when the TV show was in its prime. They had a Clone Wars RuneScape type style game. I'm not sure if a lot of people that are listening that have ever played it, but basically you could customize your own character, and it was RuneScape, but for Star Wars. That's basically what it was. And that was an open world game where you could travel to, different planets and stuff and play online with friends. But the game didn't last long because they didn't have enough people, and it was they're kind of fixed for an open world game, but it of just the mechanics for it, probably wasn't the best at the time. But I really can't think. I mean, I know I never had the opportunity to play the new Star Wars, the Old Republic games online. Josh, did you ever play the
the Knights of the Old Republic?
Yeah.
So like we have like Knights of Old Republic and the Old Republic.
Yeah, that
I
was an
think,
MMO. Yeah.
Yeah.
like MMO wise, they've only ever really been MMO games because all the other ones is much more focused on like a story. I know that our classic generation one would have been The Force Unleashed.
Oh yeah.
Like Force Unleashed, Star Wars Bounty Hunter, those kinds of things were like our side. But no, what you're describing, I don't think there's really been
No.
where you get that kind of it's only one or the other. So
Yeah.
that's another reason why I'm very excited to see what they do with Outlaws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you
Oh.
think technologically we're not there yet? Is it like
I think we're
computing power?
technologically there. I just don't think that they feel like it's a broad enough appeal to push for it. Because if you wanted a GTA game, they're just going to make a new GTA. It's like, what is it? Something
Yeah.
billion right now that has gone into just making that game, and they still get hundreds of millions of dollars, like for the 10-year-old GTA now. It's
Yeah.
like they haven't had a need to touch it as of yet. So it's kind of like ultimate freedom with that game versus in a Star Wars universe for us. How much money would you be able to push for that to being something? Don't know. And it like, so for now, I think the main things that we're gonna get, it's like, hey, I want, like, Star Wars fans would be like, I want all these games smushed together into one, and I don't think that's on the tables as of yet.
Yeah.
Like, it's definitely like, I feel like all these game creators are like, yes, that's where we're going, but it's just not just yet. Because there's only one Rockstar, and they're only going to do one sort of game. And I would love for them to do a Star Wars version of that game, but it's just not there yet.
And if they ever do, it's going to be a very long time. They are still they haven't even shown a trailer for GTA 6 or anything. They like haven't publicly shown just any footage or any work on it for like the past couple of years. And
Besides getting leaked, everything.
yeah, yep, and they weren't happy about that. So if they did a Star Wars game like that, it wouldn't happen for a long time.
Something that is awesome is we still do have modding communities, and they have really kept Battlefront alive.
Absolutely.
Like modding communities, being able to put in all the characters that you want, change up gameplay aspects, put in different like planets and worlds. And I know there is stuff for that for GTA on PC where there's mods for Star Wars. So it can be done. I just don't think we're there yet as of where they want to go with Star Wars.
Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of mods, have you guys seen that mod where they take Jedi Survivor and they make the lightsaber like cuts realistic, so you're just slicing through stormtroopers and they're just cauterizing, so there's no blood or gore?
I have seen it.
Is that like just something that someone made and it's not ever going to be implemented?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
That honestly is just a mod someone made like super quick. Well, not super quick, but a lot of people loved it. Like, and that trended so quickly because there's a lot of games, like a lot of Star Wars games out there that have really never shown what a lightsaber should be able to do in a game that we get from the movies, of where if you get your arm chopped off, your arm gets chopped off. And if you're fighting a beast, for example, in Survivor, and you're slashing it a bunch of times and it's not, going down, that's kind of, they want to keep, so they like want to keep that, that teen rating, because if they go,
there's no blood or gore though. You just
well,
slice them in half.
I mean,
I mean, you do slice people in half and cut off their arms in Survivor already.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's just not extensive as what you're talking about, because I saw the clip that I think you sent.
I think it has something to do with like narrative wise, is that like, hey, if you're just able to immediately slice through everything, what's the challenge?
Right.
Or like vice versa, if they hit you once, like you're immediately dead. Like I feel that's the kind of issue that you run into. Whether they would base like a combat game, like maybe like Chivalry or For Honor, that is a Star Wars based, where it's like the whole idea is fully based in combat and how you fight each other, where like one wrong move equals death, would be cool. Would love to see it, and it would work for Star Wars 100%.
Be
It's
the
just
hardest game in the world.
it's one of those things that it's like it's another piece of the puzzle of what everyone would want from a Star Wars game.
Absolutely.
How much can you put to the side of, like, for the sake of it being a video game? How much can you be like, well, it's okay if you just kind of hit them with a lightsaber and not immediately slash through them, because I like the challenge and I like the feeling of the video game? Or do you have to have it that way? It's kind of, you're always going to have a little bit of give and take when it comes to the video game side. However, I do feel like it is the type of media that allows for such great customizable and open world where you can really live your own Star Wars story. And we've been wanting that forever. So it's definitely one of those things I'm like, it's hard to see where we want to fit.
Yeah. Yep. It is just a dream right now, but there are a couple of Star Wars games that are still in the work, because there's Eclipse and then there's 2 other unknown titles, but we know the studios that are making them. Josh, do you know what they are?
I know that Eclipse is going to be interesting because it's a David Cage styled game, however bad he is, which is a very big narrative kind of click and play. If you've ever played on the old DVDs where you're like, all right, hit the button, and then it'll take you through a different side of the story. I don't know, David, have you played Dragon Quest, like on an arcade machine? Or do you know what
Probably, but I'm trying to remember how the actual gameplay was.
Like something would pop up, it would flash on the screen. You have to like move your like controls to the left or controls to the right. Like it completely like changes every time you're playing the game.
You talking about that old arcade game that was like going through a book?
Yes.
Okay,
yeah. It's the same kind of thing. That's what the game is going to be, where you're going through different narrative paths and different options, and there's a lot of different ways that the game can be completed and new things can happen. It's just that you're gonna have to be like, yes, that Star Citizen comment. Yes, I have played it. Yeah, that would be a cool way of doing a Star Wars game. Star Citizen is an insanely open world where ships and literally, like, you know how Coruscant is complete like different levels and like different doors, and there's tons of different
13.
Yeah, it's
just bring that game back. I mean, come on.
It would be nice. Yeah, Star Citizen would be awesome in a Star Wars sense. It's just it's. I mean, that's the most expensive game ever made currently. I feel like we have all these high ideas for Star Wars. I just don't know how that would work out. I crowdfund that game. I think that would be fun.
Yeah.
If they can do it for HasLab and get people all over the Ghost, I feel like we should be able to do it for a video game.
And I believe that David actually already pre-ordered that, right?
I actually haven't, because I don't know.
Okay.
No, I don't know what credit card or debit card I'm going to use to buy that thing. So yeah, I need to look at all my finances and figure out how many I'm going to buy.
Gigantic.
Yeah, it's mad. It's not going to fit on this shelf back here, guys. I'm going to have to buy something new. I was actually thinking about taking down my shelves and then just putting the mounts for the helmets and have those like kind of floating, and then putting individual shelves on there, because you see the sideshow Grogu right there. It doesn't fit in one of the cubes there. It doesn't fit. So that's to go all the way up on the top. So I want to do something different there. So
I've got the issue for my Black Series Darth Vader helmet. Like, it would not fit in the shelf, so I had to buy a whole separate shelving unit just for that, and that's a beautiful piece, by the way. But yeah, so no, I get by, you're starting to get more and you have to make more space, but If you have to take down a wall, you have to take down a wall. Right?
I actually could take down that wall because
Do it.
the bedroom right there. It's our guest room. Where
Oh.
Colin is probably going to stay when he comes down to Texas here pretty soon.
For what, David?
For a convention in Portland, Texas called
I'm waiting.
Called?
Called
The anticipation.
CadabraCon.
Wow, that's a great segue, David. Let's talk more about CadabraCon.
All right, so yeah.
smooth.
So yeah, CadabraCon is a convention that's happening September 29th through October 1st. And it's going to feature a lot of different non-Star Wars celebrities. But there's going to be 3 Star Wars celebrities there in particular. Daniel Logan will be there, who we all know as young Boba Fett from Attack of the Clones. Also, Susanna Malik, who is the other Jawa from the Disney Plus shows that I haven't met yet. I met Leilani Shu, and I did a small interview with her. But yeah, she's the other Jawa. And the third prominent Jawa is actually Leilani's daughter, named Ariel, who I don't think has done any press at all. But those are the 3 main Jawas that have been in The Mandalorian, Book of Boba Fett, and probably future stuff. And also this actress named Christine Gailey. She was in the R2 unit for the Book of Boba Fett episodes where we saw Mando pop up. And you see that scene at the very bottom if you're watching this on YouTube. That is a scene where we see Ahsoka and Luke Skywalker together having a conversation there where Luke is building that new Jedi temple. So yeah, these 3 Star Wars actors should be there. We're planning on doing a live podcast on stage for the very first time. We've been applying to Star Wars Celebration forever, but this will probably happen on the panel stage. Hopefully Colin will be there sitting next to me.
Yeah.
And or I don't know, via satellite if that's capable there. But yeah, hopefully he's there in person. I invited everyone on the podcast to come down. So hopefully we can have more people show up. And yeah, it's at the end of September.
Yeah.
Should be cooler weather. It's in the Gulf Coast of Texas. So hope to see you there.
There you go. That was a great segue. That was like just perfect.
Cleanest transition I've ever seen.
Fantastic.
So natural.
How many of you watched the Lego holiday specials? No?
I have not.
No. Well,
I've
guess
seen bits
what?
and pieces.
Oh, okay. Well, guess what? There's another one coming out this fall, and this time it will be about the Mandalorian, but it's going to have a Halloween theme to it. So
Nice.
Ooh.
yeah. Don't you mean boo? I'm sorry. That was a terrible joke. Yeah. But
It's spooky season.
what's cool about these specials is that in some ways there are different canon elements, in my opinion. Not everything is canon, but for example, in the last one that came out, the summer vacation one of where Weird Al, kind of plays himself, and then he has his own song in it, which is super, super funny. But in that one, at the end, it kind of tells you of what's happening with, all of the characters from the sequels, and, of where the journeys are ending. And if they kind of continue that in the new, in the new Jedi Order movie with Rey, that will kind of be like, oh, hey, some things in there were actually canon, because Rey and Chewie are going to the unknown regions to explore, most likely to, find a new planet for the new Jedi Order. And then Poe is trying to rebuild the New Republic and like all that stuff. And that happens at the end of the summer vacation special. And then in the holiday one, the Christmas one, Max Rebo performs at a he performs, for the crew on Life Day, and Poe is like, hey, you're Max Rebo from the Max Rebo band. Where's the rest of your band? And the Max Rebo was like, oh, they all died. And then he's like, oh, so it's just like, in some ways, yes, I know it sounds like I'm just finding some way to make that seem canon to me that he's alive during the sequel era, but honestly, there are some elements in there to me that are canon, and there are shorts in there that are pretty cool. So I would definitely check it out, especially if you're a Lego fan, because it's just like a fun thing to watch when you're building a new Lego set. So definitely check that out. And speaking of not the Lego, of the sequels, I know David talked about it briefly, but John Boyega, I guess, is open to coming back as Finn in the new Rey movie coming out. How do we feel about that?
Did he change his mind from the last
Yeah.
time we talked? Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know that he said if there's anything that happens, you'll have to hear it from me and not some random news source. I was like, ooh.
He said he is open to returning. Those were his words.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
if Daisy Ridley comes back and Oscar Isaac comes back, I think that's going to be like
Enough.
Well, that's what happened with Spider-Man, because Tom Holland and Toby and Andrew were talking, and then Andrew was like, well, I saw that Toby was coming in, and if Toby was coming back as Spider-Man, then I have to come back as Spider-Man. And I think that's the type of situation of where John Boyega loved working with these actors, and these people were like his family for a while. So I think that's going to be the big persuasion for him to come back.
Yeah, John Boyega made that really kind of odd statement to me where he said, the only way I'm coming back is if JJ comes back, if Kathleen Kennedy comes back, if like this other person comes back. And it's like, we all know that they're not all probably coming back no matter what. Like JJ's probably not going to come back for that. And by the time this movie rolls around, Kathleen Kennedy might have been retired, So, I mean, it's kind of odd. And then he said, I don't want to be Disney Plus. And that was right before The Mandalorian hit. And that was like the biggest thing on the planet. And to me, I was like, I wouldn't say that. But John Boyega, he's a really great actor. He has great acting chops. He's done a lot of critically acclaimed stuff, more so than I think Daisy has. Adam Driver, Oscar Isaac, I think they're just stars now. So they really don't need to come back to Star Wars for a paycheck per se, if you see it in that light. But I think if Daisy did ask John Boyega, hey, come back, let's do the Star Wars thing, I think they are real friends in real life. And I think that friendship is pretty strong. And I think John Boyega has made it clear that the marketing in the trailers kind of misled the public as to what kind of character Boyega was going to be, the prominence in the films in the sequel trilogy. And I think there's an avenue to make his character pretty prominent. I'd love to see it. I love to see him as a Master Jedi. That'd be really cool. That'd bring his kind of story kind of full circle there. And I think we all kind of thought he was going to be a Jedi in the sequel trilogy, judging off of some of those trailers. So
yeah,
I think that'd be awesome to see.
And in the kind of going back to the Lego specials that they did, they actually have him being trained by Rey in those holiday specials. So I think in a way they actually gave Finn a decent amount of more character development than what they did in the actual sequels of him becoming a Jedi. So if he does come back in the new Jedi Order film with Rey, that would be a big thing. And I think the script will have to be fantastic to have him come back, because I think John Boyega, which I think a lot of people feel this way, is that he felt robbed. Like his story of jumping from a stormtrooper to, kind of leaving the First Order and then becoming a Jedi. That's so cool. And that never really got explored because so many script changes and stuff behind the scenes happened. So hopefully we get that training like his Jedi training in the movie that Rey ends up, being in. Now, Rey loves Rey and all and the sequel era. Rey,
Yes.
how excited would you be if you saw Poe, Finn, and Rey all on screen again?
I would be thrilled. Absolutely. I think this movie is you'd have to. John Boyega was really robbed because they really build his character as like having a prominent role. And then that's kind of how they set up The Force Awakens, is that like those three would be the new Han, Luke, and Leia. And it didn't really pan out because they didn't spend any of the Last Jedi together. And they were like hit or miss in The Rise of Skywalker. So I think this movie would be a really good opportunity to deliver on the sort of unspoken promise that they made about Finn, how they propped him up to be this bigger character. This would be really good to deliver on that. And you could bring in the other characters that also didn't get much of their story, like Rose. She definitely needed a bigger part, I think, because there's so much to that character. And I think it would be cool to bring her back into this movie as well, which I could see happening, because if Rey takes a prominent role, she's probably going to be very much in touch with the Resistance because they're her family. And so I don't see her cutting that off, because family is such an important through line for her.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that would be really neat to see Kelly Marie Tran back, because I think she knocked it out of her park with the acting. It was her first big thing that she had ever done. She was I believe she was doing like theater at the time and doing like comedic stuff. And when she got cast, it was like, wow, another like newcomer, just like Daisy Ridley. And I thought she was great. And yeah, I did think she got kind of put to the side in The Rise of Skywalker, and her kind of through line didn't happen, which I don't know. I mean, it's complicated to have to try and end 3 trilogies in that one movie, and it got kind of a mess. And yeah, it's a Star Wars film. These films typically aren't very long, so I mean, it's so much screen time.
Yeah. I also think that if they were to get the 3 leads from the sequels, Finn, Poe, and Rey, that it would be real leverage for Oscar Isaac and John Boyega to get the ending that they wanted for their characters.
Yeah.
For sure. I'd love to see something to do like what they had originally for John Boyega. I wouldn't doubt that that's what he's doing now, is going around being like, time to liberate all the old stormtroopers and give them a new life. So
yeah.
That actually would be.
I was saying how John and Oscar shipped their characters.
Oh yes, correct.
So hardcore. Like, it was canon to them, and they were just waiting for it to appear in the movie.
And they were just like, psych.
They've done interviews where they're like, yeah, I was really disappointed that they didn't pan it out that way. And I'm like, they built everything up to it. It's so clear. And then they just fizzle away. And I'm like,
it's right there. Just do it. Just do it.
Just kiss already.
Absolutely. And someone said that Colin's favorite character definitely gets robbed. Honestly, I'm gonna say no to that. I don't think that that he got robbed of any storyline. I think his story is still out there. Because again, I scanned that scene in the Book of Boba Fett thousands of times, and I didn't see a single blue speck in there.
Hours into the lore.
Okay, but like, in all seriousness, How is it that you get your favorite character reappearing so often and in the randomest places, and I got nothing?
I've got friends in high places. Dave Filoni, what's up, man? I'm just kidding. No, no, it's
Get me in contact with them.
I
I'd love to
remember
make a request.
I remember the day that first episode came out and Max Rebo popped on screen. I cannot tell you how crazy it was that my phone was blowing up all day long and being like, how did you manifest that? How is this possible? Who do you know? It's just like, because if you truly know me, I've been campaigning for years that Max Rebo lived on the sail barge. And I noticed on the official Star Wars show that they would have small Max Rebo, kind of different action figures and kind of stuff in the background here and there. And then I know Anthony Carboni talked about it and a couple other people did. And then it finally happened. And then the first thing that Ray said was, cool, can you start campaigning about Sabe so then Sabe can reappear? And it's just like, I mean, hey, these things happen, but I
still remember I was sitting in my basement watching that episode, and when it came on screen, and I was watching with subtitles, and it said like something like alternative cantina music playing, and I screamed and sent you a Snapchat that was like, this isn't fair. How did you do this?
Right. And I also get the argument sometimes from Josh, which I know Josh has heard this from like our workplace, which is, does Max Rebo have 4 limbs or does he just have 2? And we no. And we just no.
I think it's 2.
It's not.
Yeah.
Okay, here's the thing. It can go both ways. Here's how I say it. In the original Max Rebo from the original trilogy, it looks like it's 2 feet because there's
His
weird
concept
joints
is also
at
2
the
feet.
shoulder area.
That was the concept art. Oh my god!
It looks his elbows look more like knees with the way he's sitting and the way it looks. When he reappears in Book of Boba Fett, he very clearly has shoulders. So he very clearly has 4 limbs there. So the new design definitely has 4 limbs. I don't think the original had 4 limbs.
Okay, so
him in the comic book as well. Him and his brother both. Only have 2.
Yes, because I shelved that the other day at the library, and I was flipping through it, and I was like, "Huh?
Yeah.
Legs."
Okay, so
oh brother,
here is the thing,
brother.
and yes, I will do this on the air. I don't care.
Brother.
Okay, so you have those comics, you have those books and everything, but we all know that live action always trumps anything that has stuff over the books. And the original concept art, yes, you're right. Max Rebo just had the 2 limbs, and he just played like this, and then that's how he would walk around. But all merchandise, all toys, everything that has come out from Max Rebo.
All right, the only thing I would throw out, I'm going to throw out all of that. The only reason I'm going to agree with you now is just because of
you don't want me to talk about it anymore.
Well, the only thing I'm going to agree with you is the fact that we see another of the species for Skeleton Crew. That's it. That's the only reason.
Right.
I think they used the design with the 2 limbs and then decided they didn't want that. So in all the merchandising and stuff, they went with 4.
So
right, it was Kenner that made the decision with the merchandising.
Right.
Yeah, because you popped up that picture of Max Rebo, and it definitely, he doesn't have shoulders. The arms come out from like very much lower in his torso, and so it looks like legs coming up from below.
His shoulders are hiding behind his big ears. That's
no,
fine.
They're not. They're not, though. They're not. So I think that it had more. The design that made it into the original trilogy was closer to the one that had the 2 legs, and then they're like, nah, I'm not a fan of this. Let's give him 4. And so they made it 4. And when he came back in Book of Boba Fett, they just completely redesigned him and gave him full-on shoulders. But I do like this comment. Original had 4, but 2 got blown off, so now he has 2.
Well, so the other original thing that happened was at some point the original design was for him to have, those 2 legs, but then they had so many puppeteers just controlling this character. I think they had 3 puppeteers working on Max Rebo, and they had like 4 on Jabba, and it was just like, okay, that's a lot. Max Rebo only pops on screen for maybe 30 seconds, 40 seconds, something like that. We don't need that many people. So how about we do this? And then they just change it to 1 puppeteer, and then they made it to where he's got 4 limbs. That was a lot easier than having 3 puppeteers, doing all that stuff. It was way too crazy. And you actually see some of that behind the footage in the documentary Light and Magic on Disney Plus. So if you haven't watched that yet, definitely check it out. But Phil Tippett and a bunch of people talked about, that right there was the original design. It was way too complicated. And it just, in George Lucas's eyes, it didn't look that great. So they wanted to make it, a lot easier. And to me, I think the design that they actually went with for filming looked a lot better than this original design that they had.
Yeah. But like, if you look at
just,
this concept sculpture, you see how like the legs come out from lower in the torso.
Yeah.
So I feel like that still translates to the one you see on screen, which is why it looks like it's knees instead of elbows. Also, the angle that he keeps them at is really weird.
Yeah.
So maybe he's double jointed.
Listen, his species is very, very interesting, and I love any opportunity that is presented in front of me to talk about it, because I love this character so much. So
I can't say anything negative about your love of Max Rebo because I'm just as crazy about Sabe. So I need somebody in my corner for that.
Telling you what, it's what heroes do. I got you. But yeah, David, is there anything else? Well, there is some other news about Acolyte, which is they are not going to be aiming. So there have been new reports that have stated that Acolyte will be happening during the second quarter of the year next year. So it sounds like the time frame will be from April 30th to the beginning of June. So we might get that May time frame, which is pretty cool, because my suspicions would be we would maybe get Star Wars Outlaws early spring. We would then get Acolyte, maybe on May 4th or around that time frame. Probably not, because May 4th is, I think, falling on a Saturday this year. But we would probably get around that May time frame, like maybe early May. And then we still got Andor. We have The Bad Batch season 3, and we have Jedi, Tales of the Jedi, season 2 as well, all happening next year. So there's 5 projects that are happening next year, which is pretty sick. And then we have Ahsoka coming up in a couple of weeks, which is very, very exciting. The first 2 episodes drop on August 23rd, and then we don't have an official release date for Skeleton Crew, but it sounds like it's going to be happening in that early fall time frame. So most likely, well, not early fall, but late fall,
like Thanksgiving time period. In the US.
Yeah. And then we can have a real Max Rebo debate, because then we'll see, a young. It's pronounced.
Borderland.
Yes, thank you. I was stuttering on it, but yeah. So no, that show is going to be awesome. Check out 2 episodes back of where Josh and I actually talked about the trailer more, because we actually got to see the trailer and how it's got that 80s vibe. It's got that Amblin Studio vibe, which is really, really cool. And we're thinking the reason why the budget is so high for that show is because they're going back to the way that they did effects, which is practical. And that makes sense to have the budget so high because it's so hard to do those practical effects under a decent budget nowadays because most of that stuff doesn't exist. So that makes sense of why. And having an 80s vibe type Star Wars show where you are using, you know, those type of things is going to be so cool. And I loved Goonies. I loved, you know, E.T. growing up. So having that as a Star Wars show would be very, very cool to see. So that's coming up at the end of this year. So very cool. But yeah, there you go. Does anyone have any words of wisdom? Nothing?
A couple
I have a
other
question.
things. Okay. Go ahead, Ray.
Okay. So yesterday in Congress, there was testimony that the United States government
Aliens.
has aliens. My question is, which
Do you hear
Star
Colin?
Wars species do you think aliens look like?
I think George Lucas had direct communication with some alien species. And that species would probably have to be Max Rebound. I'm just kidding.
Kaminoans.
Kaminoans has that alien vibe. I wouldn't mind ET because we technically see that species in
They
Star
look like
Wars.
Marfalump. They all look like Marfalump. That's what I want to see.
See, to me, I'm picturing kind of the creatures that were in the desert in The Rise of Skywalker, all having that little celebration.
That song was
The
fire.
Aki.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That song was fire, by the way. I just remember, and they still haven't released that on Spotify or Apple Podcast or anything. Yeah. And their dance was like, you know, sick. And it was like,
And then
that
you
was
have
awesome.
that behind the scenes footage of Daisy Ridley just walking through the crowd.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite gifts. But yeah, that's what I think. I think
yeah.
they would look like.
Okay. Fair enough.
That was my very important question.
Aliens. Yeah.
Maybe a Biff, one of the Cantina players. I mean, that looks kind of alien.
Doug.
That's a good idea.
Doug.
Because that looks,
you
that
bent
looks
the
closer
poodle.
to like our stereotype alien.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Either
yeah.
that or the Oods from Doctor Who.
I'm ready for any alien invasion. I always have my emergency lightsabers. Just come on, man, bring it on. Let's
Honey,
go.
you know those lightsabers aren't real, right?
They're real to me. Don't kill my dream.
No, they can be real, but they're
You
not
might
gonna be
attract
real to
them,
the
Colin.
alien.
When you play around all those different color lines.
The man has fire in his hand.
You know, just like, come on, man. I would be all right with aliens coming in as long as they weren't hostile. Like as long as I didn't. Like,
You want to hang out with the aliens and watch Star Wars.
Oh, I don't think aliens would
That
be
would be-
hostile. I think humans would.
Could you imagine like me, like of being the representative to Earth and just walking up and being like, all right, this is very important. Let's watch Star Wars. And we just sit down. And
They're like, take
they're
me
just
to
like
your
this.
leader. And I'm like, here, rolling in the TV on the cart, like middle
Yeah.
school.
This right here is Max Rebo. He just ties everything together. He like this is the reason why Star Wars exists. Like right, like could you imagine of them being like, is there anything else important on your planet? No, I'm not really. It's
And
just
then
Star
you have
Wars,
me
but-
break into the room and just shove stuff. I'm like, now here's Sabe.
Yeah. Oh man.
Here's why she's the most important character of Star Wars.
Man, I'm telling you, I think the war. Do you guys remember? And I know we're kind of straying away now, but do you remember when there were people that were actually planning on storming Area 51,
yeah.
and someone made like that giant like Facebook event, and people actually showed up for it, and I was just like,
It was Storm
that's
Area 51. They can't stop us all.
yeah.
Yeah, there's signs at Area 51 that say you will be shot on sight if you cross
Mhm.
this line. Yeah. But no one was shot though. I think they kind of got it, and the government was like, "Yeah, we're
Yeah,
not gonna
no,
kill
they had
anyone, we'll
people
just-"
out there,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it was just a bunch of
Enthusiastic fans.
yes.
I mean, I think the only reason why I would want to go in there is to see if they actually have the Ark of the Covenant, because I know it's been there since the 1930s, and I would just really would like to see it because that's a huge artifact and it belongs in a museum. But yeah,
Okay, Indiana Jones.
is there? I think that's everything. David,
Well, I want to add something.
oh, here we go. It never ends. Let's go.
You're welcome for this devolving.
No, I'm fine with it.
So I had a conversation with someone that their brother worked at Area 51, and he showed
Okay.
me some pictures of stuff. It wasn't alien stuff; it was just like experimental stuff that we were
Okay,
trying,
well,
and it was really interesting.
I'm
And
terrified
I asked him,
now.
I was like, "Hey, did your brother ever?" I asked him the question. I said, "Are there aliens there? The spaceship, recovered spaceship?" He said, "Nothing that my brother could tell me." He's like, "No, but we did a lot of experiments trying to like lift stuff in the air that probably shouldn't be lifted up in the air." So.
The way you phrase that, we lifted things in the air that probably shouldn't be.
Yeah, he showed me pictures, and they got declassified, and we Googled it, and you saw stuff that they just stuck wings on stuff, and yeah, it probably shouldn't fly, but they got things to fly that probably shouldn't be in the air.
Like cars.
Yeah, exactly. Like they took an RV, kind of like Spaceballs, stuck wings on it, and made it fly. Yeah.
Wow.
If you Google it, you can see the pictures, but
No.
yeah.
Wow. Well, there you go. Aliens.
Oh yeah, look at that. Someone like Sabe too.
I love you. You're my favorite.
Well, that was a very eventful podcast. I enjoyed
You're
anyone's still
welcome.
listening.
I'm back.
3 people listening.
Yes, this honestly is a great way to bring back a classic member. Welcome back, Ray. We're happy to have you back.
I love chaos.
There you go. There you go. All right, David.
Let's
So,
go.
2 more things.
Oh boy.
Oh,
We mentioned-
okay. We're not done.
We mentioned CadabraCon, which is going to happen at the end of
Okay.
September, but there's also Corpus Christi Comic-Con that's happening.
Okay.
And I'm going to go this Sunday. It's happening all this weekend in Corpus Christi, Texas. I will be there Sunday trying to interview the Armor, Emily Swallow,
There you go.
Carrie Jones, who played Black Chrysanthemum in the Book of
Yeah.
Boba Fett, and Dorian Kingi, who was in the Cad Bane suit for Book of Boba Fett. So if you're around there, you might see me running around with a microphone. So there's that.
Nice.
But also in a future podcast, we will have Bob Wills back on the podcast, who is the showrunner, founder, creator of the Superhero Comic-Con and Car Show. And they've already made the announcement for next year, 2024. If you're watching us on video, the dates will be June 20th through the 23rd. And I spoke to Bob privately, and he brought up some interesting names that are really right up our alley that are possible celebrity guests for next year. So hopefully we can have a bigger presence there as Star Wars Stuff podcast. And yeah, we got a little under a year to prepare for it. So
There will also be 7. Yeah, there will be 7 of us going to Dragon Con. So yeah, I know it's crazy. And we're all going to be wearing costumes. It's going to be a great time. So if you see us on the floor, we're definitely going to have merch. So come and say hi to us. And we're all wearing, a bunch of different Star Wars costumes throughout the weekend. I know Hunter is taking his droid Stu, and then I'm taking Anakin. We've got 2 Captain Rexes. We've got Obi-Wan Kenobi. We have Clone Commando. Like, there is so much happening with our group. And then there's a lot of great people that will be there. And if you haven't gone to Dragon Con, I would definitely go because it's definitely, great costumes the entire weekend, and like screen accurate costumes. Like they are handmade. They're beautiful. They're amazing. And then you got drinking like the entire weekend. It's just a giant party like the entire weekend. That's exactly what Dragon Con is. So if you see us, come and say hi to us at Dragon Con. Yeah. That's it. There you go. Josh? Nothing? No? Cool. No thoughts of the day?
No thoughts of the day.
Oh, okay, cool. All right.
I'm
But you
taking
can
notes on
find Josh on Threads, though. He's making Threads posts now for the podcast. So check us out
Threads.
there.
Wow.
And if you don't know what Threads is, it's basically a replacement for Twitter, essentially.
Well,
Yeah.
Twitter's now
Replacement
Twitter
for
is now
X.
X. Twitter's X now.
X.
Oh, my bad. Yeah, it's a replacement.
X
for
Force.
X.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me send an X real quick.
Oh,
Let me
man.
re-X that. Like, okay.
Oh boy.
All
This
right,
is
and
where
with
the fun
that,
begins.
for Josh, Ray, Colin, and David, may the force be with you.
Always.
Max Rebo has
Do
4
we still
limbs.
do that?
Yeah.
This is the way.
Da, 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 da.